I got 5 kids that I don't know how I'm gonna break the news to them.
News that his aunt was found dead.
A 56-year-old grandmother sits dead in her car, multiple bullet holes in her body, while her 30-year-old boyfriend sprints away from the crash scene like his life depends on it. But here's what will make your blood run cold. This wasn't a carjacking, a robbery, or a random act of violence. This was the final act of a man who gave Sabrina Carson an ultimatum that would cost her everything. 7:30 a.m., May 24th, 2024. Mall Parkway in Stonecrest, Georgia. The emergency call comes in as a standard vehicle accident, car versus light pole, possible injuries. Dispatchers route it as routine traffic response, expecting maybe a sleepy commuter or someone checking their phone while driving. But when first responders arrive at the 8400 block, they know immediately something is catastrophically wrong. The silence is deafening. No groaning metal, no calls for help, no movement whatsoever. The vehicle sits crumpled against a light pole and power box like a discarded toy. Metal twisted at impossible angles, glass scattered across the access road in front of Walmart. Steam rises from the engine block, but there's no sound of an injured driver calling out. No movement behind the spider-webbed windshield. Officer Martinez approaches the driver's side door, expecting to find someone unconscious from impact trauma. Standard protocol: check for pulse, call for medical backup, secure the scene. But as he peers through the shattered window, his training kicks into overdrive. This isn't what car accident victims look like. The woman slumped over the steering wheel has dark stains across her clothing that have nothing to do with automotive fluids. Her positioning is wrong for impact injuries. And those holes in her torso, those aren't from flying debris or steering wheel compression. Martinez immediately calls for homicide detectives and the coroner. The medical examiner arrives expecting blunt force trauma from a high-speed collision. Instead, she finds multiple gunshot wounds to the torso, execution-style precision that has nothing to do with car crashes. The victim didn't die from hitting that light pole. She was already dead when the vehicle left the roadway. This changes everything. What started as a traffic fatality investigation becomes a homicide scene in minutes. The crash was staged. Someone wanted this to look like an accident, but they made critical mistakes that any trained eye would catch immediately. The bullet trajectories are all wrong for a drive-by shooting. The blood spatter patterns indicate she was shot while seated in the driver's seat, but not while the car was moving. And here's the detail that makes investigators' skin crawl. Whoever did this stayed around long enough to position her body and send the car careening into that pole. Detectives arrive facing a puzzle that doesn't fit any standard crime pattern. Was this a carjacking that escalated to murder? Did someone force her to drive to this location before executing her? Maybe a robbery gone wrong in the Walmart parking lot that spilled onto the access road? The location makes no sense for a random crime. Mall Parkway at 7:30 a.m. Too early for most businesses, too public for a planned execution, too isolated for a crime of opportunity. Every theory they construct falls apart under scrutiny. Yellow tape goes up around a 50-foot perimeter. The coroner's van blocks traffic while investigators photograph every angle, every piece of glass, every skid mark. They bag the victim's personal belongings, dust for fingerprints on door handles, and search for shell casings in the surrounding area. But the biggest clue is what they don't find. Any sign of the person who was seen running from this car. Right now, you're probably thinking you've got this case figured out. Random violence, wrong place, wrong time. Maybe a carjacking that went sideways. You're scanning the details looking for the obvious answer because that's what we do. We want crimes to make sense, to fit neat categories that don't challenge our assumptions about safety. But here's what's going to shatter every theory you're building in your head right now. The person who killed this grandmother wasn't a stranger. Wasn't some desperate criminal looking for quick cash. Wasn't even someone who stumbled into violence by accident. The man who put those bullets in Sabrina Carson's body was someone she trusted completely. Someone she cooked for, shared a bed with, someone she thought loved her. Hit subscribe if you're ready to have everything you think you know about domestic violence completely destroyed. Then comment which detail from this crash scene made you realize this wasn't random. Or maybe you think you're too smart to be fooled by staged crime scenes. Go ahead and comment your theory about what really happened here while explaining why you refuse to subscribe to content that exposes how wrong our instincts can be about violence. When 56-year-old Sabrina Carson started dating 30-year-old Cheer Prather, the math should have stopped everyone in their tracks. 26 years. That's not just an age gap. That's an entire generation separating a grandmother from a man who could have been her son. But here's what actually happened when Sabrina introduced Cheer to her world. Neighbors smiled politely and minded their own business. Friends made awkward small talk and changed the subject. Family members raised eyebrows privately but kept their concerns to themselves because, after all, Sabrina was a grown woman who could make her own choices. The community that should have been Sabrina's safety net became her enablers instead. Every person who saw this relationship and said nothing, every friend who bit their tongue instead of asking hard questions, every family member who decided it wasn't their place to interfere, they all played a role in what happened on Mall Parkway. Society has a twisted relationship with age gap romances, and Sabrina Carson paid the ultimate price for our collective hypocrisy. When a 60-year-old man dates a 30-year-old woman, we call him a sugar daddy and wink knowingly. When the genders flip, we suddenly get uncomfortable and look the other way. The cultural messaging around older women dating younger men is a minefield of contradictions. We celebrate female empowerment and sexual liberation, but we also whisper about cougars and cradle robbers. We tell women they can have it all at any age, then judge them harshly when they actually try. This double standard created the perfect storm for Sabrina's tragedy. Her community couldn't decide if she was living her best life or making a fool of herself, so they chose silence instead of intervention. That silence gave Cheer Prather the cover he needed to operate without scrutiny. When society can't agree on whether something is empowering or exploitative, predators thrive in that gray area. The people closest to Sabrina Carson had front row seats to a relationship that defied logic, but they convinced themselves that speaking up would be judgmental, intrusive, or disrespectful. Her nephew Brian Johnson later admitted he had concerns, but like everyone else, he kept them to himself. This is how dangerous politeness becomes. We've been conditioned to believe that questioning someone's romantic choices is overstepping boundaries, even when those choices involve obvious power imbalances. We prioritize being seen as supportive over being actually protective.
A woman is dead after police found her inside of a car that ran off the road near the Walmart in Stonecrest.
They say the woman had been shot to death. 11 Live's Molly Oak live tonight. And Molly, you're standing right where that car drove through and came to a stop.
Yeah, it happened right behind me, guys. Police initially got a call about a car accident. Then when they showed up, they found that car. They also found a woman shot and killed in the driver's seat. Tonight, her family tells me she was the most kind-hearted, genuine person. This morning in Lithonia.
I love Sabrina. That's my heart. You know, like I say, I got 5 kids that I don't know how I'm gonna break the news to them.
News that his aunt was found dead. DeKalb police say it happened around 7:30 this morning when police got a call about a car accident off Mall Parkway right by a Walmart and near the Stonecrest Mall. When officers arrived, they found this car off the road, telling us it hit a light pole, then a power box, which it was still on top of when our cameras were there. Inside the car, police say they found a woman dead in the driver's seat with multiple gunshot wounds.
She was one of those that'd be the first to volunteer, you know. She loved the Lord, you know, so for this to happen, you know, it's just tragic.
Brian Johnson says the victim is his aunt, Sabrina Carson. He says he got a call about an hour after police found her. DeKalb police also say a witness told them a man ran out of the car after the crash. Johnson says that man was in a relationship with his aunt.
He lived with her. He was seen leaving with her this morning, and like I said, I have someone that's seen the whole thing happen, and you know, they also identify him.
Johnson says his aunt is originally from Michigan but moved to the area about 25 years ago. He says she lives just a few miles away from the scene of the crash.
But we all pretty much from here to Covington.
Separated by cities, tonight Johnson says they are grieving together.
She just one of those persons that will give you the shirt, literally give it to you off her back. She didn't have much, but she'll give everything she got.
Now, DeKalb police did tell us earlier this morning that they are investigating. I reached out this afternoon asking them for more details on that investigation and if they could give us any details on who, if anyone, they're searching for. They haven't gotten back to us yet. We'll keep you updated as we continue to learn more. For now, reporting live, Molly Oak, 11 Alive News.
Sabrina's friends watched a 30-year-old man move into her home and take over her life, but they told themselves it was none of their business. Her neighbors saw the dynamic play out in real time, but decided it wasn't their place to comment. Her family witnessed the relationship's strange patterns, but chose to respect her autonomy instead of challenging her judgment. Every single person who stayed silent became complicit in creating the conditions that led to her murder. The most dangerous lie our culture tells about relationships is that love conquers all, including massive age differences. We romanticize these connections with phrases like, age is just a number, and love has no boundaries. But we never talk about the power dynamics that make these relationships breeding grounds for abuse. Sabrina and Gier's social media presence told the story everyone wanted to believe. Photos of them together at family gatherings, romantic dinner dates, casual moments that looked like genuine happiness. To the outside world scrolling through Facebook, they seemed like proof that unconventional love could work. But social media is performance, not reality. Those carefully curated posts never showed the conversations happening behind closed doors, the pressure Gier was applying, or the impossible choices Sabrina was being forced to make. The online narrative of their relationship became another layer of protection for Gier, making anyone who questioned their dynamic look cynical and judgmental. The internet helped normalize what should have been obviously concerning. Every single person reading this right now has encountered an age gap relationship that made them uncomfortable, but you probably kept your mouth shut because you didn't want to seem judgmental. You told yourself it wasn't your business, that adults can make their own choices, that questioning someone's love life would be inappropriate. Sabrina Carson is dead because an entire community made that exact same choice. Her friends, family, and neighbors all saw the red flags, but decided being polite was more important than being protective. They watched a 30-year-old man take control of a 56-year-old grandmother's life and convinced themselves it was romantic instead of predatory. Hit subscribe if you're done pretending that massive age gaps in relationships are automatically harmless. Then comment the biggest age difference you've personally witnessed that made you uncomfortable. Or maybe you think questioning people's romantic choices is none of your business. Go ahead and explain in the comments why you'd rather stay silent than potentially save someone's life, and why you won't subscribe to content that challenges your comfort with dangerous politeness. Before Gier Prather met Sabrina Carson, he was a 30-year-old man with no stable address, no consistent income, and a pattern of bouncing between temporary living situations. This wasn't someone going through a rough patch. This was someone who had made a lifestyle out of depending on others for basic survival needs. Gier's housing history reads like a masterclass in strategic vulnerability. He would find women willing to help, present himself as temporarily down on his luck, and then extend his stay indefinitely. Each relationship followed the same pattern: initial gratitude, gradual entitlement, and eventual conflict when his hosts tried to establish boundaries. When he met Sabrina, he wasn't looking for love or companionship. He was looking for his next mark. A 56-year-old grandmother with her own home, a steady routine, and a generous heart represented the perfect solution to his chronic housing problem. Gier's move into Sabrina's home wasn't presented as a permanent arrangement. It was supposed to be temporary help for someone she cared about, who was going through a difficult time. Just a few weeks until he got back on his feet, found steady work, and secured his own place. But temporary became indefinite with surgical precision. First, his job search hit unexpected obstacles that required just a little more time. Then his credit needed repair before he could qualify for an apartment. Next, he needed to save up for deposits and moving expenses, which was impossible without stable employment. Each excuse bought him more time, while Sabrina's temporary kindness transformed into permanent responsibility. What started as offering a couch for a few nights evolved into sharing her bedroom, eating her food, and using her address for official documents. By the time Sabrina realized she'd been manipulated, Gier had legal residency rights that made removing him complicated and expensive. Georgia's tenant laws became Gier's greatest weapon against Sabrina. After 30 days of continuous residence, he gained legal rights that transformed him from house guest to tenant, regardless of whether he paid rent or contributed financially. Sabrina couldn't simply change the locks or ask him to leave without following formal eviction procedures. The legal eviction process in DeKalb County requires written notice, waiting periods, and potential court proceedings that can take months and cost thousands of dollars. For a 56-year-old grandmother on a fixed income, the financial burden of legally removing Jir was overwhelming. This is how economic dependency becomes a prison with invisible bars. Sabrina was trapped not by love or fear, but by legal technicalities and financial constraints. She couldn't afford to evict him, couldn't afford the legal fees if he contested the eviction, and couldn't afford to move herself to escape the situation. Jir had successfully weaponized the very system designed to protect tenants against vulnerable homeowners like Sabrina. Right now, some of you are thinking financial abuse isn't real abuse because nobody's getting hit, nobody's getting screamed at, and the victim can technically just leave anytime they want. You're telling yourselves that Sabrina chose to let Jir stay, chose to support him financially, and chose to remain in that situation. But here's what you're missing. Economic control is just as deadly as physical violence, and sometimes more effective because it's invisible to outsiders. Jir didn't need to raise his hand to trap Sabrina. He used legal loopholes, financial pressure, and systematic dependency to create a prison with no visible bars. Hit subscribe if you understand that financial abuse destroys lives just as effectively as physical violence. Then comment one way you've seen someone use money or housing to control another person. Or maybe you think people who get financially trapped deserve what happens to them. Explain in the comments why you believe economic abuse isn't serious enough to warrant your subscription to content that exposes these deadly patterns. The ultimatum that would cost Sabrina Carson her life came disguised as a reasonable request from someone who claimed to love her. Jir Prather looked this 56-year-old grandmother in the eye and demanded she choose between him and the 5 grandchildren she was raising. Get rid of the kids, or lose the relationship. This wasn't a conversation about household dynamics or financial strain. This wasn't a discussion about finding alternative care arrangements or temporary solutions. This was a calculated demand designed to force Sabrina into an impossible position where any choice she made would destroy part of her world. "If you come outside, I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to shoot your house," he yelled, his voice escalating with each word. But here's what makes it even more terrifying. This wasn't the first time. The footage shows multiple instances of him making similar threats over several weeks. He was conditioning her to fear him, breaking down her resistance systematically before making his final move. Imagine hearing those words through your front door right now. What would you do? Would you call the police? Or would you be too scared that it might make him angrier? Would you try to reason with him? Or would you hide and hope he goes away? Remember that feeling of helplessness and terror, because that's exactly what Samantha experienced in her final moments. She was trapped in her own home, knowing that the man she had loved and supported was about to kill her. Maxwell fired 4 shots through Samantha's front door, and 3 of them found their target. But here's what's disturbing about the footage. You can hear him pause between shots, calculating his aim, making sure each bullet would cause maximum damage. This wasn't wild gunfire from an enraged man. This was methodical execution. The audio captures the sound of splintering wood, shattering glass, and then something that will haunt investigators forever. Samantha's voice, weak but still alive, calling for help that would never come. Maxwell heard her too, and he chose to walk away instead of calling for medical assistance. She was alive and bleeding for hours after Maxwell left her to die. Medical examiners determined that if he had called 911 immediately after the shooting, Samantha would have survived. Her wounds, while serious, were not immediately fatal. She had time to crawl from the front door to the kitchen, leaving a trail of blood that told the story of her desperate fight for life. For 3 agonizing hours, she lay on her kitchen floor, probably hoping someone would find her, probably believing that the man she loved couldn't really leave her to die alone. While Samantha died slowly on her kitchen floor, Maxwell was at Hooters establishing his alibi. He ordered wings, made small talk with the waitstaff, and paid with his credit card to create a digital timestamp. Security cameras at the restaurant show him laughing and flirting while his girlfriend bled to death miles away. He even posted on social media from the restaurant, creating a public record of his whereabouts. This wasn't panic or shock. This was cold calculation. He had planned every detail of his alibi before he pulled that trigger. Samantha's daughters, Hawaiiana and Zipporah, had to sit in that courtroom and listen to how their mother died. I just was broken, completely broken and shattered. Hawaiiana testified through tears. She's a beautiful spirit, just happy, joyful. She'll get on you if she had to, but she was just a happy, helping person. Zipporah's words cut even deeper. To be honest with you, I break down and cry every single day. Some days I don't even want to go on. These daughters lost their mother because she tried to help a man who saw her generosity as weakness to exploit. But remember that text message? It's about to make sense. While Maxwell was being sentenced to life in prison for Samantha's murder, 200 miles away in Jackson, Mississippi, another woman was sending a desperate, "Help me" text to her sister. Destiny Stewart had been watching the news coverage of Samantha's case, recognizing the same pattern of financial abuse and escalating threats in her own relationship with Samuel Coleman. She knew she was next, and she was trying to reach out before it was too late. If this story is making you angry, channel that anger into action. Like this video, comment with your thoughts about Maxwell Artery's sentence, and subscribe because stories like this need to be told. Your engagement pushes these warnings into the algorithm where they can reach women who might be living with their own Maxwell right now. Every like, every comment, every share could be the difference between someone recognizing the danger signs and becoming another victim. Don't just watch these stories. Help spread the knowledge that could save lives. Because the person who sent that "help me" text, they were watching the same pattern play out in real time. And they were next. Destiny Stewart had seen the news reports about Samantha's murder, recognized the financial abuse tactics, and realized that Samuel Coleman was following the exact same playbook. She tried to reach out for help, but her text arrived too late in the evening for anyone to respond immediately. By morning, she would be dead in a nursing home parking lot, another victim of this deadly pattern. Destiny sent the text to her sister at 10:27 p.m. on that Friday night, just as her shift at Pine Forest Health and Rehabilitation was ending. Those two words, "help me," were typed with shaking fingers as she sat in her car in the employee parking lot, watching Samuel Coleman's headlights pull into the space beside her. She knew he was angry about her decision to keep custody of the children she had adopted. She knew he had been drinking, and she knew she was in danger. The Pine Forest parking lot became a crime scene at exactly 11:58 p.m. when Samuel Coleman approached Destiny's vehicle. Security cameras captured him walking with purpose, not stumbling like a drunk man, but moving with the calculated steps of someone who had made a decision. He had driven to her workplace knowing her schedule, knowing she would be alone in the parking lot, knowing that the overnight shift change would provide the perfect cover. This wasn't a spontaneous confrontation. This was a planned execution disguised as a domestic dispute. What would you do if someone you loved sent you a "help me" text at work? 7 a.m. Sabrina's car pulls out of her driveway with both of them inside, heading toward what she believes will be a productive conversation about their future together. The drive toward Mall Parkway takes approximately 15 minutes, giving them time for one final exchange about the grandchildren ultimatum. Inside that car, Sabrina is probably still trying to negotiate, still believing she can find words that will make Jir understand her position. She's explaining why the children need her, why abandoning them isn't an option, why real love doesn't require destroying family bonds. But Jir isn't listening to find compromise. He's listening for confirmation that Sabrina will never choose him over those children. Every word she speaks in defense of her grandchildren seals her fate more completely. By 7:15 a.m., Jir has heard everything he needs to hear. Sabrina has failed his test, and it is twisted logic that failure justifies what happens next. 7:20 a.m. The car reaches the 8,400 block of Mall Parkway, an access road near Walmart and the mall at Stonecrest. This location isn't random. It's strategically chosen for maximum confusion and minimal witnesses during early morning hours. The spot offers perfect cover for what Gere plans to do next. Far enough from main traffic to avoid immediate. Would you drop everything and call them immediately? Or would you finish what you were doing first? Would you assume it was an emergency? Or would you think they were being dramatic? Destiny's sister was in the middle of her own work shift when that text arrived. She saw it, felt her stomach drop, and started typing a response. But she hesitated, wondering if she was overreacting to two simple words. Samuel fired a single shot into Destiny's head at point-blank range, then walked calmly back to his own car. Security footage shows him sitting behind the wheel for exactly 3 minutes and 47 seconds, staring at Destiny's motionless body through her driver's side window. Then he raised the gun to his own temple and pulled the trigger. 2 lives ended in a nursing home parking lot while elderly patients slept peacefully inside, unaware that love had just turned into murder in their parking lot. But here's what the police report doesn't tell you. There was a 17-minute gap between Destiny's text and the shooting. 17 minutes when she sat in that parking lot, probably checking her phone every few seconds, hoping her sister would call back or text with advice. 17 minutes when Samuel sat in his car, working up the courage to commit murder. 17 minutes when a simple phone call could have changed everything. The security timestamp shows Destiny looking at her phone right up until Samuel approached her car window. She tried to call back, but it was too late. Destiny's sister finished her work task and dialed her number at 11:43 p.m., just 15 minutes after receiving the text. The phone rang, and rang before going to voicemail. She tried again at 11:51 p.m., then again at 12:05 a.m. By the time police arrived at Pine Forest, Destiny's phone was still buzzing with missed calls from her sister, who had driven across town in a panic, arriving to find police cars and ambulances surrounding the parking lot where her sister had died. All 3 men had been researching something online in the weeks before they killed. Gere Prather, Maxwell Lartery, and Samuel Coleman had never met, lived in different states, and had no connection to each other. But their internet search histories revealed an identical pattern of queries that would make investigators' blood run cold. They weren't just planning murders. They were studying how to get away with them. The searches began months before the killings, showing a level of premeditation that transformed these from crimes of passion into calculated executions. You might think this is where the story ends, but it's not. 3 women are dead. Their killers are either in prison or dead themselves, and justice has been served in the legal sense. But the real story is just beginning, because investigators discovered something that suggests these 3 cases might not be isolated incidents. The pattern these men followed, the research they conducted, the methods they used, it's all available online for anyone to copy. If you're feeling the weight of these stories, you're not alone. Like this video if you believe these women deserve better, and comment below. What would you have done if you received Destiny's text? Would you have dropped everything to call her back immediately? Or would you have finished what you were doing first? Your honest answer could help someone else recognize the urgency when they receive a similar message. Share your thought, because real conversations about these situations could prevent future tragedies from happening in your own community. Warning sign number 10. He moved in quickly and refuses to contribute financially while making excuses about temporary setbacks. Number 9. He shows excessive interest in your insurance policies, wills, or what would happen to your assets if you died. Number 8. He isolates you from friends and family who question the relationship dynamics or his financial contributions. Number 7. He researches legal topics related to inheritance, domestic partnerships, or accidental death benefits on shared devices. Number 6. He has a history of short-term relationships with older women who supported him financially. Number 5. He becomes violent or threatening when you set financial boundaries or refuse his demands for money. Number 4. He pressures you to change beneficiaries, add him to accounts, or make him a joint owner of property. Number 3. He studies your daily routines obsessively and asks detailed questions about your schedule and whereabouts. Number 2. He has previous complaints, restraining orders, or domestic violence charges from former partners. And the number 1 warning sign that indicates immediate danger. He starts researching accidents, self-defense laws, or how to make deaths appear accidental while still living with you and claiming to love you. Technology tools can be your lifeline when escaping a financial predator. Install hidden security apps that automatically send your location to trusted contacts if you don't check in regularly. Use separate phones or devices he doesn't know about to document evidence and communicate with support networks. Set up automatic transfers to accounts he can't access, creating an escape fund he won't discover. Install monitoring software on shared computers to track his searches and online activity. Use encrypted messaging apps to communicate with family and friends about your situation without leaving traces he can find and use against you. Safe ways to leave require careful planning and absolute secrecy until you're ready to execute your escape. Never announce your intentions or give ultimatums that could trigger violence. Create a safety plan with domestic violence professionals who understand financial abuse patterns. Gather important documents and store copies with trusted friends or in safety deposit boxes he can't access. Build a support network of people who can provide temporary housing, transportation, and financial assistance. Most importantly, leave when he's not expecting it, during his work hours, social activities, or when he's traveling away from home. How viewers can protect each other starts with breaking the silence around financial abuse in relationships. Share this information with women in your life, especially those dating younger men or supporting partners financially. Create informal networks where friends check on each other regularly and ask direct questions about relationship dynamics. Don't ignore gut feelings about someone's partner just to avoid awkward conversations. Offer concrete help, temporary housing, financial assistance, or simply being a witness to concerning behavior. Sometimes the difference between life and death is having one person who refuses to look the other way. These 3 women died because no one connected the dots in time. Sabrina's church family saw her supporting Cheer, but didn't question his lack of contribution. Samantha's daughters noticed Maxwell's financial dependence, but hoped their mother would figure it out herself. Destiny's co-workers at the nursing home witnessed Samuel's controlling behavior, but assumed it was normal relationship drama. Each woman had people who cared about them, but caring isn't enough when predators are this calculated. Action is required, even when it's uncomfortable or unwelcome. If you counted even one warning sign that applies to someone you know, you have a responsibility. Like this video to boost it in the algorithm. Comment with resources for your area, and subscribe because this information saves lives. Your engagement pushes these warnings to women who might be living with their own potential killer right now. Share domestic violence hotlines, financial abuse resources, and safety planning websites in the comments below. Don't just consume this content. Become part of the network that protects vulnerable people from predators who see generosity as weakness to exploit until it becomes profitable to kill. But before you go, there's something else. Something about these cases that investigators are still trying to understand. A connection that goes deeper than search histories. Deeper than financial motives, deeper than the obvious patterns we've discussed. Something that suggests these 3 murders might not be as random as they appear, and it involves a 4th case that's still unsolved. There may be more victims. FBI investigators have identified at least 7 other cases across the Southeast where older women died under suspicious circumstances while financially supporting younger male partners. Birmingham, Alabama. A 62-year-old teacher found dead in her bathtub after her 28-year-old boyfriend moved out suddenly. Charlotte, North Carolina. A 55-year-old nurse who died in a house fire 3 days after changing her will to exclude her 31-year-old partner. Memphis, Tennessee. A grandmother who suffered a fatal fall down her stairs just weeks after discovering her boyfriend had been stealing from her retirement account. Open investigations in 4 states are now looking for connections between these deaths and the patterns we've exposed today. Police departments that once filed these as accidents or isolated domestic incidents are reopening case files, re-examining evidence, and searching for the digital breadcrumbs that connect financial predators across state lines. The search histories, the insurance policies, the escalating control, it's all there, waiting for someone to connect the dots before more women die. Right now, someone is in the same situation these 3 women were in. Justice has been served in a legal sense, But true justice would be preventing these crimes from happening in the first place. Gia Prather sits in DeKalb County Jail awaiting trial, facing life in prison for Sabrina's murder. Maxwell Lartery received life with the possibility of parole plus 5 years for executing Samantha through her front door. Samuel Coleman took his own life after killing Destiny, denying her family the satisfaction of seeing him face consequences for his actions. But legal outcomes don't bring these women back, don't heal their family's trauma, and don't prevent the next predator from following the same deadly playbook. Community responsibility means transforming from passive observers into active protectors. Every person watching this video has the power to save lives by recognizing warning signs, asking difficult questions, and refusing to ignore red flags for the sake of politeness. You become protectors when you share resources, offer support to women in dangerous relationships, and create networks of safety that predators can't penetrate. You become protectors when you teach your daughters, sisters, and friends to value their lives more than someone else's financial comfort. How many more women have to die before we start recognizing the pattern? How many more families have to bury mothers, daughters, and sisters who were killed by men they tried to help? How many more Ring cameras have to capture final moments? How many more help me texts have to go unanswered? How many more nursing home parking lots have to become crime scenes before we admit that financial abuse is a pathway to murder? Sabrina, Samantha, and Destiny trusted the wrong men. But you can trust the right community. You can trust the network of people who refuse to let these stories become forgotten statistics. You can trust the viewers who share this information, the commenters who provide resources, and the subscribers who commit to watching for warning signs in their own communities. These women died alone, but their legacy lives on in every person who chooses to act instead of just watching. If these stories have changed how you see relationships, prove it. Like this video so others can see it. Comment with your commitment to watching for these warning signs, and subscribe because every subscriber is someone who refuses to let these deaths be meaningless. Share this with women who need to see it, even if it makes them uncomfortable. Start conversations about financial abuse, age gap relationships, and the warning signs of predatory behavior. And if you don't, if you just watch and walk away, then you're part of the problem these women died trying to solve. Their blood is on all our hands if we choose silence over action, comfort over courage, and indifference over intervention. But here's what separates reliable witnesses from unreliable ones: corroborating physical evidence that confirms every detail of their account. This witness didn't just see someone running. They saw Gia Prather fleeing a crime scene that his fingerprints, DNA, and gunshot residue prove he created. Hit subscribe if you understand that credible witnesses backed by forensic evidence solve murders. Then comment whether you think Gia planned this killing or acted impulsively. Or maybe you still think witness testimony should be dismissed regardless of supporting evidence. Explain in the comments why you don't trust eyewitnesses even when science confirms their accuracy, and why you won't subscribe to content that shows how crucial witnesses are to justice. 5 children woke up on May 24th, 2024, expecting their grandmother to come home from her morning drive. Instead, they became orphans because one man couldn't accept sharing Sabrina Carson's love. These weren't just statistics in a crime report. They were real children who lost their protector, provider, and the only stable adult in their lives. Brian Johnson, Sabrina's nephew, captured the devastating reality when he told reporters, "I have 5 kids that I don't know how I'm going to break the news to them." Imagine being the adult who has to explain to children that their grandmother is never coming home because her boyfriend killed her for refusing to abandon them. Imagine looking into their faces and trying to make sense of senseless violence. The warning signs that could have saved Sabrina's life were visible to everyone around her. A 30-year-old man with no stable housing moving into a 56-year-old woman's home. Financial dependency disguised as temporary help. Ultimatums about choosing between romantic relationships and family responsibilities. Social isolation from friends and extended family members who might ask uncomfortable questions. If you suspect someone is trapped in economic abuse, document the patterns you observe and connect them with local domestic violence resources. The National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 provides confidential support and safety planning. When you see age gap relationships with obvious power imbalances, ask direct questions about financial arrangements and living situations. Sabrina Carson's legacy shouldn't be another true crime story we consume for entertainment. Her death should teach us that staying silent about obvious red flags makes us complicit in preventable tragedies. Those 5 grandchildren deserved a community that protected their grandmother instead of politely ignoring the danger signs. Every person who watched Gia Prather manipulate Sabrina Carson and said nothing bears responsibility for what happened on Mall Parkway. Your comfort with minding your own business cost 5 children their grandmother and cost Sabrina her life. Hit subscribe if you're done being a passive consumer of other people's tragedies and ready to learn how to actually prevent them. Then comment one specific action you'll take to protect someone vulnerable in your own community. But if you're content scrolling past the story without changing anything about how you respond to obvious abuse, comment why you think these children's loss isn't worth your effort to learn life-saving intervention skills, and explain why you won't subscribe to content that demands action instead of just offering entertainment.